Good evening and welcome to the Newshour Agenda. I'm Madhavdas. As Israel prepares to carry out a ground operation in Gaza to crush Hamas, the India alliance leaders have expressed their solidarity with Palestinians and have condemned Israel's bombing of Gaza. As many as 15 India alliance leaders, including current and former members of parliament, have equated Israel's actions to genocide attempt. Expressing concern over the plight of Palestinians, they've called up for an urgent delivery of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. They've also highlighted Mahatma Gandhi's statement that Palestine belongs to Arabs. Listen in.
Palestinian people's right to have their own homeland. And now what Israel is doing is nothing but occupation of Palestinian territories. It is Israel which has been conducting the war against Palestinian people. This war must be stopped, peace must be restored, and the two-state solution proposed by United Nations must be recognized. The international community will have to play an important role on this matter.
हम लोगों ने फिलिस्तीन के एम्बेसडर से मुलाकात की है। मेंबर पार्लियामेंट हैं, डिफरेंट पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के लीडर हैं, और हमने गाजा के अंदर जो वायलेंस हो रही है उसकी निंदा की है, और जो भारत सरकार का पहले से एटीट्यूड रहा है उसके अनुसार यूएन के रेजोल्यूशंस के आधार पर वहां शांति स्थापित की जानी चाहिए। अब वर्तमान में जो इजराइल के द्वारा की गई कार्रवाई है हम उसकी निंदा करते हैं। हिंसा किसी भी सवाल का जवाब नहीं।
यहाँ जो हमारे देश में जो फिलिस्तीन के राजदूत हैं उनके द्वारा हम भारत की तरफ से फिलिस्तीन की आवाम को के साथ खड़े हुए नजर आना चाहते हैं कि वहां पर जो जुल्म और ज्यादती हो रही है उसके साथ भारत खड़ा है, भारत के पार्लियामेंट के लोग खड़े हैं, हिंदुस्तान की जनता खड़ी है।
Other opposition leaders also denounced Israel's actions. PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti has questioned why there were more concerns about Israel than Manipur, where innocents are being killed in our backyards. This is in fact Iltija Mufti, the daughter of PDP leader Mehbooba Mufti. Iltija has slammed Israel, saying that the Jewish country is being depicted as a victim and Islamophobia is being fanned. BJP, however, was quick to target the opposition leaders condemning Israel, but maintaining a stoic silence on the brutality committed by Hamas terrorists in Israeli society. BJP has alleged that this one-sided view is on account of vote bank politics.
16 members of the parliament, the present and the former members of the parliament, has issued a press note supporting the Palestinian cause, saying that Palestine should be given a separate land. All good. But they have not written a word about Hamas. They have not mentioned Hamas, that what sort of barbary and what sort of butchery Hamas has done is shocking. That because of vote bank politics, they can go to this extent.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us for more on this, we have with us Tuhin Sinha, the BJP spokesperson. With us also is Yoni Leviathan, who's a writer. Sushil Pandit, activist, is with us. Dr. Naval Kishore is the national spokesperson of the RJD. With us at the moment is Advocate Nikhil Jain, and also joining us on the broadcast is Professor Atikur Rahman. Let me start with you first, Dr. Naval Kishore. You know, any party can talk about a humanitarian crisis. That is fine, and that is understandable. But the point being made is, when such a unprecedented terror strike has taken place, why is it so difficult to come out and condemn that? And is that not the cause of this current cycle of violence, Dr. Naval Kishore? And these members of parliament may go anywhere. They can go to Palestine Embassy, they can go to Israel Embassy, whatever they want to do, they can do. But the point we are asking is, how can there be just a one-sided condemnation of the violence that is taking place, Dr. Naval Kishore? Given that India has been a victim of terror.
Let me make it very clear that we condemn the barbaric act of Hamas. Nobody have supported. None of the opposition party have supported. You read the letter. There is no kind of appreciation about any kind of barbaric act.
But where's the condemnation? Why is it so difficult to condemn the Hamas?
No, I am saying to you online, and that is my party line. We have said that. So where is the difference?
So the difference is
We are
this.
just
What I'm saying is just like the CWC resolution we saw a few days ago. Similarly, this letter, which is incidentally signed by Mr. Manoj Jha, who's from your party, where he has come out and he has signed a letter, one line saying that we condemn Hamas's actions of terror. One line. Why is it so difficult to say that?
No, it is not difficult to say that, and it is, in fact, the whole world community is saying that. But the answer to that is not another barbaric act which is indiscriminate in terms of attacking. So that also should be condemned. And it is here that we are saying that the international. No.
Also, that is a problem, sir, because you're saying also, but the first condemnation is not there in the first place. That's the exact point I'm making.
No, you read our viewpoint. We have already condemned so many times, right from the day one. And there is what is our interest is what has been said by Gandhi and what is there in the United Nations resolution, that this kind of act must be stopped in the interest of the world community and
But
peace.
you know what is the problem, Dr. Navashar, you're absolutely right. What Mahatma Gandhi said is being quoted. I agree with you. But the problem is this kind of terror raising its ugly head was perhaps not the reality about 70, 80 years ago when Mr. Gandhi spoke about this. He is the father of the nation and his words are to be respected. Nobody is doubting that. Nobody is saying that. The Ministry of External Affairs also has put out a statement talking about both sides. But the point is, we talk about both sides. That's exactly the point being made over here. Let me bring in Tuhin Sinha. Tuhin Sinha, how do you view this letter that has been signed by several members of parliament, both current and former? And this selective condemnation is something that many are questioning as to whether they have forgotten what happened last Saturday morning.
Well, good evening, Madhav. Good evening, everybody. The Indie Alliance MPs who went to the Palestine Embassy to show their support have essentially been experts at misleading the Muslim community in India. They belong to the same ilk. If you remember, in 2013 July, there were 65 members of parliament who wrote to Barack Obama administration saying Modi ji should not be given a visa to the United States. What happened 10 years later? Where is Modi ji and where are those 65 MPs? So essentially, these MPs should realize that Indian Muslims have nothing to do with what is unfolding in Israel. There is a concerted attempt by these members of parliament to convert the perpetrator into a victim. There is a concerted attempt to shy away from mentioning the word terror when it comes to the Stone Age monstrosity unleashed by Hamas on 7th October. And all of these don't behove well for the future of our country. As far as we are concerned, our stand has been very consistent. You know, in 2017, Prime Minister Modi became the first Prime Minister to visit Israel. We have dehyphenated Israel and Palestine while we continued to support the Palestine cause as before. We optimized our relationship with Israel without any pretense. And I think, you know, that continues to remain our stand. But after this brutal act of terror, the focus right now should be to end terror, because Hamas is the biggest enemy of the Palestine cause. Till the time the Indie Alliance accepts that, they are doing a great disservice to the Muslim community.
Nikhil Jain, it is nothing but vote bank politics, says Tuhin Sinha. Please respond to him.
The opposition MPs have approached the embassy of Palestine, not the embassy of Hamas. So standing with Palestine at this moment has nothing to do with standing with Hamas or condoning the attack that they did. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
So why not say it then, sir? Why not say it? That's the only question we're asking.
Has the Congress party not put out a press release and an official statement on that condemning the attack?
After the CDC resolution, which was again one-sided. That is the whole point.
No, Madhav, before that.
Before that, and then the resolution very conveniently dropped any reference to Hamas and terror. Just 4 days or 3 days after the attack took place.
Madhav, because the resolution was about Palestine, it was not about Hamas. The attack on Israel is by a terrorist organization. It is a terror attack. That is not to say that we have any enmity with Palestine.
My question to you is very simple.
My very good friend is saying that the people of
India as a country,
India have nothing to do with.
India is a country, Nikhil Jain, which has suffered many a terror attack. We're not even talking about 26/11. 2 prime ministers from the party that you support, both Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, have lost their lives to terror. Yet,
Absolutely.
Yet, it appears to be very difficult for a section of our political class to come out and condemn terror. It is your political party that has lost it.
No, Madam,
That has lost two prime ministers. Sorry.
Let me make a nuanced point on this. If any opposition MP or the government of India, for that matter, to Palestine saying that we are condemning the attack by Hamas, is it not equating the state of Palestine with Hamas? The attacks by Hamas have to be condemned, which have been condemned, but to add that into a statement with reference to Palestine is essentially conflating Palestine and Hamas, and that is what the BJP would like. My good friend from the BJP, Tuhin Sinha, is saying that Indian Muslims have nothing to do with Hamas. They don't support this, and he's perfectly right. But I hope his party also believes that, and his supporters tell the people of the country that. We all know what the BJP is trying to do with this horrible terrorist attack that has happened in Israel. They're trying to drum up anti-Muslim sentiment in India, and that is why the BJP is so tight-lipped on the atrocities that Israel has committed on Palestinian land, but is very open and vocal about the atrocities that Hamas
so agreeing with what Iltija Mufti says, this is an attempt at whipping up the sentiment of Islamophobia. That's the allegation Iltija Mufti is making, which Nikhil Jain is repeating here. Please respond to that.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
You know, Madhav, I just need to correct, he attributed certain words which I had not said. I said Indian Muslims have nothing to do with what is happening in Israel and Hamas. It's largely the result of the power play also between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So I think, don't unnecessarily drag the Indian Muslims into it and take a stand which is unequivocally anti-terror. The answer to a political dispute cannot be a sudden act of terror unleashed on a morning when kids and women are sleeping and butchering them. If you don't condemn it unequivocally today as an act of terror, such a thing could be repeated in any other part of the country. And we in India, between 2005 and 2008, have experienced our own Hamas, Pakistan-based terror groups and supported by Indian Mujahideen unleashing similar terror. So please be more unequivocal in condemning such brutality.
All right, let me bring in Sushil Pandit. Pandit, when you see the opposition leaders come out and say that this is the stand taken by Mahatma Gandhi, this is the stand that India has taken diplomatically in the past supporting Palestine, and therefore we are just reflecting that position. How do you respond to them, Sushil Pandit?
Madhav, it is most unfortunate. We are one of the worst victims of jihad across the world. But what has been the track record of opposition in this country? Did they ever open their mouth at the genocide Hindus suffered in Kashmir? This is the same opposition which used to take an Osama bin Laden lookalike for their election campaigns in Bihar. This is the same opposition which, when ruling the country under UPA, none other than Obama in his book says when Mumbai was attacked, there were no reprisals against Pakistan because they were fearing alienating Muslim votes. This is Obama. Obama is not a contestant in Indian elections. He doesn't have political stakes in Indian elections. And he has very candidly mentioned in his own book that India failed in taking any reprisal measures, any punishment measures against Pakistan because Indian ruling elite at that time feared alienating the Muslim vote bank. In fact, they went a step further. They exonerated Pakistan and released books that alleged that this was a conspiracy by RSS. None other than Digvijay Singh publicly released the book saying Mumbai's 26/11 attacks was an RSS conspiracy. So they have always cut a huge slack for jihad in India because they have an eye on Muslim vote bank, and it is most unfortunate that they equate Muslims of India with terror and jihad.
Right.
Push them in that territory through their political shenanigans, their policies and their statements.
Professor Atikur Rahman.
I don't expect our opposition to do any better even when they see India suffering so badly at the hands of jihad.
Yes, let Professor Atikur Rahman come in. Professor Atikur Rahman, isn't this
no room to expect anything sane from Indian opposition?
Let me bring in Professor Atikur Rahman on this. Professor Atikur Rahman, you heard Sushil Pandit. He says this is the worst kind of appeasement because you have India, which has many a time been a victim of terror. I don't even need to list the cases. You know about it. All of these attacks are extremely heinous that have taken place in the past. But, at the end of the day, when we have a section of university students, I'm not saying this is across universities, but, there are images of certain university students with Hamas badges dated the 13th of October after these terror attacks. You have to question what is exactly happening. Why are there a section of people who are making it or feel that it is so important to come out and even support a terror organization that has carried out this ghastly attack?
So by the yardstick of my friend Sushilji, the complicity of the BJP government gets proved as far as Manipur is concerned, because the BJP was silent on Manipur. He is mixing up the issues. I would not like to mix up the issues. But
can you compare that to terror, sir? Is it a terror attack? One second, simple question. Mr. Atikur Rahman, you can question the BJP government, I have no problem. But is what happened in Manipur? Certainly there was violence, but can that be compared to a terror attack, sir?
The silence of the BJP proves the complicity.
You're not answering my question.
To Manipur. Anyhow, you are mixing up the issues.
You are mixing up, sir. You are comparing. I am not saying that what happened in Manipur was for a minute right. I am not justifying any violence here. But I am just saying that can you compare that kind of widespread violence with a terror attack is my simple question. Is it fair to do so?
Allow me to have my 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, but answer my question. You can speak for 2 minutes. I will allow you. But answer my questions, please.
What?
I think there's a problem with that line. I think there's a problem with your line, Atikur Rahman. Well, let's try and fix that line. There's some network issue over there. But let me bring in fact, for all those who come out and make these kind of statements, let me bring in Yoni Leviathan, who's a writer, joining us from Israel. Yoni Leviathan, when you hear, not just in neighboring Palestine, but when you hear globally voices of support coming in, some refusing to condemn what Hamas has done, the kind of pain and suffering that people have had to go through, I believe at last count the toll was over 1,400. That's a huge number of lives that have been lost. There are still those who are hostages. What would you like to say to those who are equating the two situations as to what's happening in Palestine and what has happened in Israel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on and giving me a chance to speak. I would like to put it in the context for the Indian people, because I know that you have suffered many terrorist attacks. The most well-known was the Mumbai attacks in 2008, where 164 civilians in a nation of 1 billion people were killed. Israel is a nation of less than 10 million people. We lost, as you just said, over 1,400 people. They weren't just killed. They were slaughtered. Men, women, and children raped, babies beheaded, butchered. There were groups in one town, 280 people were killed. 80% of them were tortured. They found groups of children, 10, they counted them. 10 here, groups of children tied together with their hands behind their back and burned alive. This wasn't just a terrorist attack. This was a brutal slaughter, a crime against humanity. Now, I know a lot of Muslims. I live in Jaffa. It's a mixed city of Jews, Arabs, Muslims, and Christians. I live next to a mosque. I call to prayer 5 times a day. The Muslims I know, this does not represent them. There's a lot of misconceptions about Israel. It is a Jewish state. It is not only a state of Jews. 25% of our citizens are not Jews. Many of them are Muslims. And by the way, there were many Arabs and Muslims who died in this attack. So I would have to ask you, if you're hesitant to condemn this attack, is that because you believe that this is a legitimate way for the Palestinians to achieve their right to self-determination? Because that's not the Islam that I have been familiar with. I'm not an expert, but that's not the Islam I know. Those are not the Muslims I know. And if I could just respond to one other thing, this idea that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people, it's half right. The Palestinian people are divided into 2 different entities. There is the West Bank, in which they are ruled by the Palestinian Authority. And these are people that we don't always like, but we can talk to them. And then there's the Gaza, which is ruled by Hamas. There's this idea that Hamas is a terrorist organization, equivalent to all others, that is just causing a lot of trouble. People forget that the Israeli army withdrew from Gaza in 2005, withdrew every last soldier, every last settlement. And in 2006, the Palestinian people in Gaza held democratic elections. They elected Hamas. So to say that Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinian people, it's just not true. It doesn't represent all of them, but it does represent some of them. So if you're not willing to give them this brutal, heinous attack that wasn't just against Jews, it was also against Muslims and Arabs and Druze and Christians. Everyone died. How can you not condemn this? Is this what Islam stands for?
Professor Atikur Rahman, would you like to respond to Yoni Leviathan, who has just articulated his position? Do you agree with him?
Yoni, you rightly said that the Palestinians would never like a state which is on the debris of the dead people of my friends Israelis. No, sir. But I would like to ask you a question. Who is the occupier and who are the original inhabitants of Palestine?
Can you repeat the question?
I'll repeat it. Let him finish. Yeah.
And the Palestinians are the real inhabitants of Palestine. Sir, the Israelis need to go back.
So, but what did the United Nations do then, sir, in 47? Why are you calling them illegal occupation? No, okay, I'll let Yoni respond to you. Yoni, there is a sentiment over here. There is a sentiment that is being expressed and articulated by a panelist, Professor Atikur Rahman, that Israel is an occupying force. They are occupying Palestine, and it is the inhabitants of Palestine who deserve to be there. How do you respond to this charge coming in from our panelist?
Well, I think what you just said is exactly where I would begin, in that in 1947, the United Nations voted Israel as a legitimate state. We are a legal state. This is our country. Now, if the Palestinian people want to live side by side and have their own state, we're in favor of that. That's why we signed the Oslo Peace Accords in 1993. The result was 7 years later, we got an intifada that lasted 5 years and 1,000 Israelis died over the course of those 5 years. Now, here we are 20 years later. We've made multiple attempts, multiple peace offers. Every single time we've been met with violence, and 20 years later, now we have 1,400 Israelis dying in one day. And they didn't just die, it was in such a brutal way, it was a one-day Holocaust. And I know about the Holocaust because my grandmother was a survivor of Auschwitz. She was in concentration camps for 3 years. So when we're talking about this, for the Jewish people, it was a one-day Holocaust. Now, if the Palestinians want to live side by side, we are in favor of that. That's why we keep making peace offers. The problem is, too many Palestinians, not all of them, but too many of them don't want a Palestinian state. They want to destroy the Jewish state, and those are two different things. If we're talking about living side by side, this is a conversation we can have. If we're talking about a Palestinian state instead of a Jewish state, no, this is a fight to the death. If that's what Hamas opened up, a fight to the death, there's no other way to respond to it. And if you think that we're not hurt by the images coming out of Gaza, we are. We do not want to hurt innocent people. We are trying to defend our own people. That's why we gave them 4 days notice, 4 days and counting. We have not sent in ground troops. We want to move the innocent civilians from the north to the south and get them out of the line of fire. Did our civilians get 4 days notice before they were slaughtered? No. But they were slaughtered, and they weren't slaughtered just by a terrorist group. They were slaughtered by the democratically elected leaders of Gaza.
Respond to that. End of the day, Atikur Rahman, let's also remember, US President Joe Biden, while appealing for the fact that the civilian casualties should be minimum, has also said that it is Hamas that is using innocent Palestinian families as human shields. Would you say that he is also wrong?
Mr. Yoni, the Muslims across the world do not recognize Hamas, but they recognize Palestinians, and with the cause of the Palestinians. I would like to ask you one simple question. Whom do the Israeli state recognize as a force to be reckoned with in conversation with the Palestinian cause? Hamas we do not recognize. Does the Israelis have any talking terms with the conversation with the open prison like a Palestinians? Whom do they want to talk, sir?
He just said that they can talk to the Palestinian Authority. He just said it. He just said it a few minutes ago.
Whom do the Israelis recognize as a talking term?
All right. Sushil Pandit wants to respond. I'm going to allow him to come in. Yes, Sushil Pandit.
No, I think this distinction between Palestinians and Hamas is false. It is dishonest. The Palestinians of Gaza elected Hamas. Palestinians of Gaza gave Hamas fighters. Palestinians of Gaza gave Hamas legitimacy. Palestinians cannot wash their hands off Hamas so easily. So now if Hamas has put them in a soup, Hamas has put them in an existential crisis, they should be asking these questions of Hamas. As to what were they thinking when they attacked Israel on 7th of September? Didn't they see these consequences coming? Do they have any
7th October.
contingency plan for the Palestinians stuck between a hard place and the sea?
Okay, I'm almost out of time. I want to get a quick response from Dr. Naval Kishore. Dr. Naval Kishore, if they have been legitimately elected, a terror organization that is espousing the use of violence, if they have been elected by the people, you have Sushil Pandit here saying that perhaps they have to take some amount of responsibility or where the brunt of that decision is what he is saying. No one's taking away from the humanitarian crisis, but there is a serious problem there.
No, but will that become the reason for go for an genocidal act? Will this world community would like to hear from him that whatever has been done is condemnable? It has been condemned by everyone. But will that become the reason to finish Palestinian in Palestine by Israeli troops? Will that be justified? That is the basic question. He will not understand because he understands only in terms of Hindus and Muslim in India. And when he thinks of, imagine Manipur, he thinks only of his government, the second engine of the government.
Naval Kishore, Mr. Naval Kishore, I think you heard I think you heard Yoni. He says that we have given 4 days notice. He says that we are not targeting civilians. We are only targeting Hamas targets. That's a specific statement that has been said. Where is the question of genocide then?
No, but what is coming to the news does not reflect what he says. That is also the fact. It is coming that the Israel, you read the newspaper, they are coming.
No,
that whatever act is being created by Israeli forces is indiscriminate use of force against the civilian.
Okay, completely out of time, gentlemen. It's been a very interesting discussion. It's very important for us to distinguish between the people of a particular country. Certainly at the end of the day, a humanitarian crisis is not what anybody would want. But in this particular case, we are talking about a terror organization. And the only point that we are trying to make over here, certainly peace needs to prevail, justice needs to prevail. But why can't we come out and openly criticize terror groups and their actions? That's a question that all citizens need to very clearly reflect on, given that India has been a victim of terror. The kind of terror doesn't matter, whether it's Maoist terror, whether it's Khalistani terror, whether it's Tamil nationalist terror, whether it is Islamist terror. None of that matters. End of the day, terror is terror. And we as a country have to stand together when it comes to such acts of terror. That's the question, and that's the point for all to ponder. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening.